podcast. That's what I do. And as you can see, there are so many books right here. If we talk about reading, I have to welcome you because it's my first video. And I just wanted to say that I hope you enjoy my content. There is a lot of things that will be up on this channel. Maybe it's interesting for you or not, but I hope you enjoy and welcome to my channel, Her Little Life. And if we talk about readings, my reading journey started when I was 17 years old, and now I'm gonna turn 24 in some months. So it's been like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I think. But I think I haven't read much. Okay, so in this video I'm gonna talk about the books I read this year. It's not much, it's maybe like 12 or 13 books. Because there is one book that I read that I started reading in 2021 and I ended in 2023, I think. No, I started reading it in 2022 in the mid June or July, okay? Yeah. And I ended it on March, I think, in this year 2023. So there will be a separate video for that book. You will see which one. And if we talk about the books I read this year, I mostly read it's very simple books, because when I read that one book that took me 11 months to complete, I got in a very 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 big reading slump, extreme reading slump, that made me read like rom-coms just to get back to reading, and very controversial books. So let's talk about books now. Is before the coffee gets cold. I don't know if you can see this or not. I have a pirated copy of this. It was a nice read. That I was hooked for the 3 stories, because it has 4 different stories of 4 different people. It's a cafe where you can go in the past or a future, but there are some rules in it that you can only meet the person who has been to this cafe, and you cannot leave that one chair. I'm not gonna reveal much because many people might have not read these 4 stories, 4 short stories. I was hooked for the 3 stories, and when the 4th story started, I was like, no, I didn't want to read it. I just wanted to turn to the next book. Although it was a nice read, it was thrilling, it was surprising, but I did not have much scope of imagination that you can say. But there are some characters in this that made me smile, that made me also cry, because I cry a lot in the books. The one thing that bothered me in that book, that the text was too small for me and I couldn't read much. The next book I read was recommended to me by one of my friends, very very dear friends, and I haven't read much of the classic books. I want to read some classic books because I am a student of literature, and I want to read some of the classic like Hamlet. The next book I read was Sherlock Holmes, The Great Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It was recommended to me by one of my friends, and it was a nice read. I read like 2 stories of it, but I'm not used to read these kind of books. Like the writing style was very very different from the books I have read, and although I want to read it again because I just read half of it, it was a nice read. It was like Sherlock Holmes I mean, what could go wrong with this? Nothing. It was a nice read. I made it like 50 pages. I read like 50 pages of it, but I really want to read it again. The next two books are very controversial for many of the readers and many of the people here, and I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think so. There is any wrong in these books because the main character of these two series of books is who's getting rid of someone who's abusive to her, and I don't think so. That is something uh, something very harmful in it. I think these are the It Starts With Us and Ends With Us series. I read It Starts With Us in 2019, I think, and these were the books that made me come into reading, and that I read most of the Colleen Hoover books and most of the little rom-coms, 50 Shades of Grey, and many Wattpad uh, books, because I wanted to know how it feels to be a reader and how your mind and your imagination works for the in reading the books. But I don't think so. There is something. Uh, if you read it like not something a fictional character would do, or something uh, just like a book without judging the characters because they don't exist in real life, and when you in a position where you're in a toxic relationship and you cannot get out of it, I think that's what these books are. This was a good, it was a nice read. It was very short for me, but although the text was still very small for me, but it was a nice read. It At least it helped me getting out of the slump I had. The next book I read was Midnight Library. I cannot pronounce that word also. This book was very short for me. It was like 300 pages, and I read it in like a week. Like I have a habit of writing the dates when I start a book and when I end it. So I started in May 15th, 2023, and ended it on 23rd of May 2023. If you can see this. So it was a nice read. It was thrilling. It was I didn't get bored in this. I wasn't zoning out in this while reading this, and it's a nice read. Nora Seed finds herself in a midnight library. She has a chance to make things right, but she doesn't know she's gonna live or die at the end of it. So it's nice. It was uh, yeah, it was a nice read. I think I rated it by like 5 out of 5 for me, because there were many times that I felt like Nora Seed. I have a problem of comparing myself with the fictional characters that I read. I don't know if it's a problem or not, but it is what it is. The next book I read was You'd Be Home Now by Catherine Glasgow. It was also a very nice read. I don't rate books lower, or I don't rate books, or I don't hate books, because always every book that I read has always made me feel emotions and made me uh, feel the characters, and there's always a new story, and there's always a new lesson at the end, and there's always a new moral at the end. I don't think so there's any book in the world that is a bad book, a book that you can hate. But I don't think so, because books are something that you can always rely on. You can always, even if you're sad, or if you're happy, or you're emotional, or you're depressed, I think books are something that made me go through the time that I wanted to die. Okay, it's getting dark, but that's how it is. So this book also made me get out of the slum that I had after reading that one book, that I'm gonna reveal at the end, and there is gonna be a separate video for that book. But it was a nice read. Okay, the next book I read was Veronica Decides to Die. I wanted to read this book for a very long time. It was a nice read. There are many scenes in this that I don't recommend you reading if you're a reader like me. Like, I don't read romance novels or any smut books that you can say. I don't read that. I just read for fun, and there are many good books, but this is, I think, one of them. Uh, it's about a girl who wants to commit suicide, and 24-year-old Veronica seems to have everything: youth and beauty, boyfriends, and loving family, but there's something missing in her life, and the story revolves around her. And there's also a very surprising turn in the last of the book, or you can say the there is a very, I can count it in a thriller book, because it was also a very sad book for me, because she wanted to die, and I wanted to die for a very long time, until I find the books I wanted to read. And I think there's also a very surprising U-turn in the last of the book, so I will recommend you reading this for sure. The next book I started reading on 24th of August, but I didn't finish it. I read I think I read until chapter 4 of this book. I found it very boring for me, because the Greek mythology was very not for me, because I was getting bored. And again, the pirated books that I can also afford is very small text, and I was very uncomfortable reading this book because of the small text. But the story also, people say that it's a very nice book, and I don't think so. I might read it again in next year. Hope so. The next book I read again, and I didn't finish it. I read 200 pages of it. This one. I might read it again, but it was a very slow paced book for me. I don't think so. I might read it, but I don't think so I will able to finish it again. We will see in that next year. The recent book that I read in November started on November 7th, and I ended on November 11th, 4 days. And I think this book has to be sorry this book has to have another solo video for this, because there is nothing in this book that I don't like. The characters, the scenes, the main reason that I like this book is the idea of death commenting, and as a story, death as a storyteller of this book. Okay, the last book I read was this one. number that made me uh, cry and made me smile. And there is family, there is politics, and there is love in it, friendship. But I don't think so there's any book that we can compare with this one, because this was a whole journey. These 1100 pages was a whole journey for me. And there were many times that uh, the many times that I uh, there were many times that I uh, related with these characters. And I think there are many scenes and many character traits. And for example, if you take Haneen, one of the characters from the book is Haneen, and I think I related to her very much. And there is one paragraph that made me cry for like 2 days. And there is, because I think it's very relatable for me, and I think I felt the same at that point of my life. It was, भाई वो मामू थे, for granted, प्यार करते थे, ख्याल रखते थे, सब for granted था, हमारा हक, अच्छे लगते थे, इज्जत करती थी मैं इनकी, ठीक है बात ख़त्म, मगर 3 दिन से मैं खुद हैरान हूँ, मुझे आज पता चला है कि मैं तो मामू से बहुत प्यार करती थी, मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था कि मैं इनको इतना मिस करूँगी, मेरा ऐसे दिल ऐसे दुखेगा, तो मुझे तो कभी पता ही नहीं था भाई, मुझे उठते बैठते मामू की शक्ल दिखाई देती है, सोते वक्त आखिरी ख्याल, जागते वक्त पहला ख्याल, वारिस मामू, बस एक दिन चाहिए, सिर्फ एक दफ़ा मुझे मामू से दोबारा मिलना है और इनको बताना है कि मैं इनसे कितनी मोहब्बत करती हूँ, सिर्फ 1 घंटे के लिए, भाई क्या हम सिर्फ इनसे 1 घंटे के लिए अपनी ज़िंदगियों को रिवाइज नहीं कर सकते. And I think only this paragraph made me cry for like 4 or 5 days, because it was so relatable for me. And I think I think I have to make another separate video for this book only. It's one of the greatest book that I have ever read, and I don't think so I'm gonna get over this paragraph only for like years. This was my wrap up for 2023. I didn't read much this year, and I plan to read a lot next year, so I might reread. This is my favorite book again, Namal. And I will also make another separate video for this, because there's a lot to talk about this book and these characters and these scenes, and there will be spoilers if you haven't read. So this was all for my first ever video for YouTube, and I think I will see you in next video. Bye.